Before we get into the show, sweat equity. Yeah, feeling that. Are you feeling it?
Unfortunately.
Ooh, I feel it. We got to do these pre-roll ads because this place has got to make a little money. It's going to kick up a little high. Yeah.
I got it.
A little sultry.
I got it, baby.
If you need a business line for your side hustle, for your business, you need a vanity number. One that spells out like Eat Me 69. You want to get like 312 Eat Me 69.
Definitely taken.
That one's probably taken in every area code. But try grasshopper.com/sweat. You get $50 off your phone line. We get a hookup here that helps the show. Our other sponsors, FreshBooks, accounting software. We've done all the accounting softwares. I hate Xero, spelled with an X.
Not a word.
Not a word. I don't like it. And it
Just
kind
make
of
up words.
feels Chinese. And
Okay.
look, I'm not xenophobic. I'm just not down with it. And then QuickBooks we had for 4 years, and I finally just kicked them to the curb. I did FreshBooks. Go freshbooks.com/sweat. It gives a little shekels back to this podcast. You get a hookup of a discount by signing up. Go freshbooks.com/sweat. That direct deposit that they just came out with is so huge when you're cash strapped, when your cash flows are really low, and you have to wait for these invoicing systems like QuickBooks to take sometimes 8 business days.
What are they doing?
To get it in your
What are you,
goddamn,
just press
it's
the
your
button.
goddamn money, dude.
Just press the button on the other end.
So
I know it's easy.
go freshbooks.com *sweat. Last one is warbyparkertrial.com /sweat. Warby Parker. I'm wearing these glasses right now. They were $95.
Wow.
A lot of people think they're a lot more.
They're not prescription though.
They are.
Oh.
They are
What
prescription.
happened? I thought you were Eagle Eye Jones.
I wear them to look smart in meetings,
Okay.
mostly. But I do have a starbursty effect with lights that I don't like. That prescription takes it out. One eye's 2020, one eye's 2015. How they got corrected was by my prescription glasses.
Oh.
Did you know that?
No.
Kinda
I thought
like,
that. Okay.
Kind of like a retainer for your teeth.
See, I thought if you took your glasses off, your eyes would get stronger.
I don't know how this works. See, this is what my eye doctor told me. warbyparkertrial.com /sweat, like Key Sweat, the R&B champ of the 90s.
Mm-hmm.
And lastly, we're in Creative Loafing's Best of the Bay. If anybody is in the Tampa Bay area, it is the alternative newspaper. Eric's in for Best Up-and-Coming Radio Personality.
That's me.
This podcast is up for Best Podcast. The studio, Sweat Lodge Studio, is up for Best Recording Studio. Our guest, Serena Fezan.
Yay! You got her right.
That's how I brought you in. See, real slick like.
Love it.
What and your Best TV Personality?
Yes, I'm so flattered.
I'm up
Very
for
exciting.
Best Comedian, which would be really funny because I've not been on stage more
'Cause you're
than
not
40
funny?
times. That too. I want to win it just to piss off a lot of comedians.
Guys, I'm so proud of you.
We haven't
you.
done anything really.
Oh my gosh. I mean, I was going to surprise you on the air by telling you I saw all your nominations, but
We're
you
3
didn't
steps
do
ahead.
much.
Trust me, we knew.
Oh yeah, we've got Google alerts on everything.
Yeah. Hey, let me start this show real quick.
We'll start it, but
What about my sweat equity?
To it.
Sweat equity. Sweat equity. My sweat equity. My sweat equity. What about my sweat equity?
good. Can I get a hottie toddy, Eric? Can I get a hottie toddy?
You
God
knew I wasn't
almighty.
going to do it for you.
Yeah. All right. Feeling good.
I love that intro, by the way.
Thank you.
That's all Eric.
I know.
Master producer.
Yeah.
Speaking of
Dropping them
master
beats.
producer, behind the glass, Tampaniac Pictures, John Paul Labalda.
Hi, thanks, Law.
Wow.
All right.
He came in quick. Great job.
Yeah, he knew it was coming
The
up.
best ever.
So what's going on? And you were just on HLN the other night.
Yes,
Yeah.
I was just on HLN, Vengeance, Killer Neighbors.
Okay.
And it's about the George Trapella case. I don't know if you guys remember that, but it happened in Polk County. This poor woman named Peggy Carr was poisoned. And
That used to be a way. Wait, that used to be how women would kill men back in the day, right?
Right.
Like in the 70s,
Oh, yeah.
they would do the slow poison.
Grind up a little
Mhm.
glass in their food.
That's how
little
you're
bits
going,
every
bro.
day.
Do
Stomach hurts.
So,
you guys like those kind of shows? I mean, are you hooked on those
No.
shows, or is this more of a girl thing?
No, it's a girl
It's
thing.
definitely a first world girl thing. I
Really?
think. Yeah, I don't listen to Serial. I don't. I actually get kind of perturbed by the friends that were like, "Do you know what a podcast is?" I was like, "I've told you I've had one for years." Like, please tell your whoever. They're like, "This one's really good though." Like,
This
thank
was
you.
more like a story.
Yeah. So Serial, there's like My Favorite Murder, which there's 2 comedians that do that. There's a bunch of them out there. The serial killer shows are crazy. I don't get it. I don't really get reality shows where the women like are beating the shit out of each other the whole episode.
Oh, you mean like the Bachelor shows and things like that? Well, they're not really
I mean,
beating each other up. There's just a lot of
Verbally
drama.
abusing.
Yes.
I get morbid curiosity. I get that. Like, I think that's fine. The part where you seek it out all the time to be scared in a way, and then it is juxtaposed to this thing where women I feel like are more scared than ever, and we've been safer than
I
ever.
know we're dealing with this, and they're doing it on their own.
Right. And so I feel like that can get in your own craw if you're kind of watching these shows or movies or listening to the podcasts that are all about serial killers. You think there's like 1 in 5 chance you're going to be killed by a serial killer.
Yeah, it's
know?
probably like 1 in a million, right?
Right.
Yeah. No, but you're right. But
You should worry about like, driving safely.
right.
Like putting air in your tires, it would actually probably benefit you way more than worrying about a serial killer.
It's weird. I did that today.
Air pressure is a big thing.
Yeah.
No one wants to
Yeah.
talk
I'm
about
huge
it.
with air pressure.
Hey, you want to get better mileage in your car and you want to be safer, you got to check that PSI, man. What's
Yeah.
your PSI?
I want to hear
Mine's
about
51.
the Polk County neighbor murders. I
Okay,
didn't
we'll
hear
save
that
PSI
story.
for another.
Well,
We'll save that for
Hot
later.
air talk.
I know, but it's interesting that you guys mentioned also with more women obsessed with these shows because, as you both know, I've been spending a lot of time in
You're a
Chicago.
woman. Oh.
I'm a woman, but also a lot of time in Chicago with my nieces, my sister-in-laws. They are obsessed, right, with these shows, and so I've started on my website, serenafazan.com. I've started to write reviews on a lot of the shows I've watched, movies and things like that. And of course, we can talk about that Polk County case. But the movie that I recently watched was the one about Ted Bundy.
Uh-huh.
Have you guys seen that one yet, by any chance?
With
Zac Efron.
Yeah, I watched it on
started
mute
to.
for Zac Efron.
Oh, you did, yeah.
But that's
you
a
know.
different thing.
Well, that one, I have to say, maybe that drew me in a little bit
Well,
at first.
yeah.
But,
He's dreamy.
Yeah, he's dreamy. But okay, so I was obsessed about finding out more about Rose Bundy. Ted Bundy fathered a child. Her name is Rose Bundy,
Uh-huh.
and she's out there somewhere. She's supposed to be around 37 years old, and the question is,
She's
where is
single?
Rose Bundy? Would you go into hiding too if you were her?
Would I date her?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd change my last name.
Yeah.
For sure.
I'm
Yeah.
sure she probably has.
I
But-
live in Costa Rica or
Oh.
something.
That's why you can't find her. Okay.
Right. I commend, though, her mother, who had a relationship with Ted Bundy, for hiding her, though, because I don't know. I was just going back to the whole female thing, obsessed with this. Yeah, I couldn't sleep. I was up until like 3 or 4 in the morning researching it.
I think it's a good indication. The women that really like this, I think it's a good indication that we want to create our own little kind of drama in a way
Mhm.
that we don't have enough going on. I don't feel
They
like
got it too easy.
I don't feel like a lot of people in the hood are like really into serial
Right.
killer shit.
Yeah. Like,
I mean-
I'm scared of getting shot for real.
Right, because you're worried about it like legit every day.
Yeah.
And so I feel like when we get too nerfed out, like on our own, we'll seek these things out, right?
Right.
Yeah. I think humans do that in general. If it's not shows like that, they're going to do whatever to push themselves, get that little, I don't know, that little edge, that buzz, to get your adrenaline going somehow.
I feel keyboard soft, so I was like, I'm gonna try to, and also I want to pick up something that I suck at and see if I can get good at it. So I'm trying to do archery to get to bow hunting legit at one point. This is the years away for me actually doing it, like where you go out and have to like be in really good shape to like,
If you actually kill something, you got to carry it back.
you got to do that
Just leave
too.
it there.
You gotta gut it. You gotta do all this shit. And so I'm not a hunter at all, but I'm like, I think that that's kind of a clear example because I'm in here all day in AC
Mhm.
all day, and then we were talking about right before we got on the mic, we create that with maybe fitness a lot of the time, like trying to push yourself to the physical limits that way, because we're not doing labor all day a lot of the time. We're doing a lot of digital stuff, so it's kind of like you got to find these kind of things to offset it.
And I wish rather than sitting in front of a TV or your computer or, on the phone and watching all these shows and using that as a distraction, you do things more like that.
Yeah.
Physical things. And listen to your podcast while you're on an elliptical or something.
Yeah. Yeah. So if it's a way to, I don't listen to a lot of stories, I would say, other than Time Suck on a podcast, which is more of like a history podcast, but they have serial killers like every third episode. So he'll pick one topic, his fans pick one topic.
I think it's even more than that.
Yeah, I mean they've gone on a run of but they picked ones that I've never heard of, which is cool. So that really interests me. And he's a comic, so he makes it funny, like really terrible to like the worst murderers of all time. But he makes it entertaining, and it has a lot of inside jokes after you listen for a while. So like that podcast is good. I just don't get like the real NPR like produced. It's in that voice. It's like
Would
this.
you believe that the
Like,
next
I'm in a
thing they
library,
did was
yeah.
the last thing
I
they
think the
did?
NPR voice is so depressing.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so played out.
Yeah.
So
Everybody thinks
depressing.
that's what you got to do to have a podcast, and it's like we were saying that it should be a different name. These things that are like they're telling stories, and it's like it's not really a discussion. It's more of like an educational thing. It's like this should be podcast where you're talking to somebody, having a conversation. Should be podcasts,
Yeah.
and then that should be whatever infocast, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, it
Just
should
get
be its
annoyed.
own, because podcast, the way we look at it, is like authentic conversation, or is about as close as you can get to real conversation. And then like the stuff that's produced like a show, that's like its own deal.
Yeah.
Like I don't even count that as like a podcast,
Oh.
really. Now Alex Jones, that I can get into.
Do the whole thing.
Well, I really need your guys' advice about, many things. Like, okay, but we'll start with the podcast.
I
You
love
guys-
giving advice.
Yes, well, you guys are
by the
awesome.
way.
You
No one
guys-
listens to it, so
No,
I know you
I
do,
think-
but no.
I think, no, you have tons of viewers. Are you kidding? People listen to your podcast all the time. So thanks to the two of you, I'm launching my podcast, which
Yeah.
is hopefully I'm launching it this week. For people who are interested in launching a podcast, what advice would you give them?
We kind of just touched on some of this a couple weeks ago, right?
Yeah, we did.
But we kind of touched on like a bit of the creative. I think the thing is just be consistent. I think that's the biggest one people have trouble with, because I've had a lot of people start podcasts and then they flail out.
Yeah.
And it's got to be like you got to have an itch to want to do something creative like that. So that part, I think Eric, when he came aboard, a 2/3 the way or a third of the way of our total catalog, right now,
something like that.
it's like he needed some outlet as well. I needed something where I can bitch about business stuff. I
Mhm.
think there's something where you got to have that itch that you're like this kind of satisfies it in a therapeutic a little bit kind of way. But the part where where you're consistent about getting this out, I chalk this up. It's really hard sometimes when there's a lot of work to do and we got to do these podcasts sometimes. But I've always made it a priority because I can consider this marketing if I really have to and kind of justify it that way, right? Because it is marketing for a firm. It's not directly related, but I can go, okay, this is the only consistent marketing I do, really. And I know it works because I get people telling me I pop up in their news feed and stuff. So we're doing something right. But I would say the biggest thing is consistency.
Well, I love podcasts because, as you guys both said, it's so conversational. You can really be yourself.
Yeah.
And it's just talking. But Eric, I wanted to ask you, I get these questions all the time. If you want to launch a podcast, can you just do it from your home, or is it better to have certain types of equipment?
I mean, you can. Your phone has a audio recorder on it. So I've seen it done where you just hit record on your phone, and the audio quality is not going to be great. But that's really, aside if you want to have it on Apple Podcasts and have it push out to the various platforms or whatever, you do have to have an account with us. It's Libsyn that hosts the audio, and there's a few things, but realistically, the barrier to entry is almost nothing.
So there's
Really?
600,000 podcasts.
Yeah.
600,000
Yeah.
podcasts.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I forget where I heard that, but I earmarked whenever I heard it, and I was like, phew. And so the barrier to entry is really low. That's why it's appealing, right?
Mhm.
And I don't think we've even hit the saturation point yet, but we're focusing on video as a thing where we see that as it's going to be inherently part of the podcast kind of process, where this is a podcast and streaming show. And we try to keep upping the game in the visual department because we don't have we're not Serena famous.
Oh, please.
We don't have that following.
You guys are too
We-
sweet.
But a lot of comedian buddies of mine have that following, and so they can record it. They can record on Anchor on their phone.
Yeah.
If you've ever heard of Anchor, it's an app that it'll push it out for you, like Libsyn we use for a website host, or a audio host. But they can get away with bad quality and stuff. We feel like we don't have that following, so we have to kind of up it in that. We have to kind of,
Exactly.
like Napoleon syndrome, like a short guy
If
has
you-
to
yeah.
make up for it by like roid out or like is loaded or something.
Yeah, if you're starting at 0 and you're using your phone as your audio,
Mhm.
how are you going to differentiate yourself from the other 599,000 podcasts?
Right.
So you can do that. You can do it on your phone, but you're going to need to have something extra to really set yourself aside. I mean, that's why I tell people, if you're going to have a podcast, have it about a fairly specific topic. Have it, our pragmatic business advice,
Yeah.
when we're messing around, and it's like,
And dick
because
jokes.
there's lots of guys, there's dudes like, it's me and my buddies just talking about current events and stuff. It's like, oh,
Are
okay,
you interesting?
right.
Yeah.
It's like, I hope you're as interesting as Joe Rogan, because good luck, it's not going to happen.
We're
It's just
curious,
crazy. Yeah,
right? Like a
right.
lot of people aren't curious to procure a lot of stuff. Like sometimes it feels easy to come in here and not be prepared because it's like I'm already looking this stuff up all the time anyway. So my thing was always like, hey, I was on the phone. Like I started a college football podcast probably like 7 or 8 years ago. We just revived it. We took a season off last season. It's called The Triple Option. We just revived it last night to get started for the season. And I just looked at it like, well, I used to call my buddies on the phone and we would talk on the phone for 45 minutes. And that conversation would be funnier about college football than any, and there wasn't college football podcasts 8 years ago. So now there's a bunch, but my thing was like the phone calls we're having with my buddy Tommy they're funnier about college football. It was better conversation than, than what was out there from ESPN and all this other stuff,
Yeah, God.
which was very, very PC,
Yeah,
very
vanilla.
very vanilla
Yeah.
opinion. So it's like, okay, there's a lane, right?
Mhm.
We can be anti-ESPN. We can be, and Barstool really went that lane if you really think about it. But I saw there's an opening that way where we can do a podcast about college football. I watch it anyway. I love it, no matter what. And so if you're really passionate about a topic, that would be the first part, right?
Right, absolutely, because you're
Inquisitive.
automatically
You like talking,
knowledgeable.
but you're a very people person. You like you. The way you just asked him that question was super professional too.
Oh, thank you.
You did like the setup. I noticed like you did the journalist setup. It's
Yeah.
like, no,
Eric, I want to ask you.
yeah.
Oh, I'll
I
pay
know.
attention now.
I
You
can't
might as well
help it.
point it over.
Yeah.
Oh, me.
Yeah.
I can't help it, guys.
No, no,
you
no.
know.
It's good. That's good training. We don't have that, and that it would be the difference in our shows. Is yours might be a better way of questioning people is something they're used to, right? Because that's the way you were taught how to do on-air interviews, and that's a good thing. I think people like that kind of familiarity. I'm just saying that your thing that you're passionate about, you're a people person, and I think that's what shines through. I think passion shines through on podcasts or just anybody you gravitate towards, right? The YouTube channels, for instance, like what's the big deal with Logan Paul, right?
Mhm,
He's just a 24-year-old kid, but he's super passionate about anything he's doing. I heard him on
Dude.
an interview and I was like, wow, that guy's really intense. And he's smart, but I mean, like,
Bro, my kids watch like Minecraft, a guy playing Minecraft, and all he does, he just says everything really passionately.
Right.
Oh, I'm gonna put this block here. And I'm like, do you guys see what this is? He's not good.
right.
Like he's not good at what he's doing. He's just saying it with 110%. And Avery just like, whatever, I don't care. Shut up.
Right.
Stop talking.
Why is Alex Jones interesting?
Right.
Because he looks like he actually believes the shit he's throwing out there.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And most of it he does believe. I mean, most of it he thinks is the truth. So if not all of it, but his passion is entertaining. What's the worst thing if you went to a comedy club to see a comedian? Oh, he's pretty vanilla.
Yeah,
Didn't have any
mailing it
opinions.
in. Yeah.
Right? So it's kind of like, there's a need to fulfill conversation that maybe people aren't having anymore. I think about that a lot too. When I was kind of holing up on my own a lot, the previous couple of years, I would kind of listen to way more podcasts because I was like, oh, I'm doing this so I don't have to think about my own shit
These
going
are
on.
my podcast friends.
Right.
They love
You
me.
do think you have like a weird intimate relationship because it's in your earbuds.
Yeah,
Right.
and it's consistent.
Most
Well,
people listen on their phone. Most
Mhm.
people, 60% of podcasts are listened to through iTunes. So we got to make sure you're hooked up on Apple Podcasts and iTunes. I heard that
She
stat
is.
the other day. I know. I'm just making sure.
Fine.
Just making sure. But yeah, but that just shows you kind of there's 600,000 podcasts, and then 60% of them, of all of them, listened to are through that app. So they're the dominant one. I
So-
kind of compared it to WordPress if you do a website.
So, I wanted to talk to you guys about that too. But the video is really important now too, don't you think? Because that's growing. Because I noticed that on your podcast, you have the video as well.
Yeah.
And, just
We want to
gosh,
step it up too. Like
Mhm.
we're trying to always improve this process. Like we even at one point we were looking into like is AR or VR even something we should kind of pay attention to?
Yeah.
Because
Nah, that's too crazy right now.
yeah, I mean
The amount of
the price-
processing power you need to make it happen is crazy.
the price point needs to come down on that tech for us to kind of be able to do it. But it is interesting to keep our eye on it and go, okay, when is that point? Maybe we can be first movers on that. And just by riding that wave, right? A lot of podcasts got big because they were just the first ones,
Mhm.
right?
Right. Right.
They were like 12 years ago, were the first to get on iTunes.
Well, there's not a lot of female podcasters too. You
That-
tell me, Law, right?
You're right.
Like
I think
They're
there's
the
more.
min- they're-
They're coming, but I think you can carve out a really good niche, especially with your background, right? Because you have those credits that a lot of people don't.
oh, thank you.
Yeah, you have a little
HLN.
bit of a head start. You've got a lot of interesting, successful friends that you can bring in to talk to. That run the Tampa Bay area. That's not everybody gets to start out that way.
But also
Right.
wisdom, right? Experience times knowledge is wisdom. So you're bringing that expertise to the table, right? I mean, that's
I'm very flattered that you guys say that, but I do. I mean, I have interviewed.
I saw her kick a kitten before we started, guys. So don't think she's
warm
that
up.
great. She's not that great.
I have had a fascinating career so far. I do feel that, I've just interviewed so many amazing people,
Right.
and I love asking questions. And I do think you're right. I am such a people person. I mean, it doesn't matter who you are. There was this couple right outside your studios, and I couldn't. Of course, I'm a klutz, so I couldn't get
Punch them.
I couldn't get my key. I
So
couldn't
aggressive.
I
Yeah.
couldn't get my key out,
Uh-huh.
So, and I'm trying to balance all these things. And of course, I start talking to them, and I'm like, oh, you guys are such a cute couple. And they were celebrating their wedding anniversary.
Oh.
Aw.
And they met in Ybor right there on that bench.
Oh,
I
really?
mean, is that not so sweet? This is what I
We
love.
should bring them up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I know. That's what I'm saying. I just
They
love
can make out on the couch over there.
There you go. Love talking to
But
people.
see, that's something that Eric and I probably wouldn't talk to them about, right? And most people wouldn't either. So I think there is something where you have that inquisitive. But I think a lot of people, when they see you, they feel their guard can be down to talk to you, right? Because I have resting bitch face when I walk around, so people think I'm just mad, and I'm like, that's just my face. I'm just thinking.
Yeah. Me too.
Again, I'm so flattered by all these kind words. I'll pay you guys later.
Great. Finally.
But I mean, I think that's what has to bleed through is you have to really do that. We call it I kind of refer to it as going in the woods and doing shrooms to know yourself, right? What are you bringing to the table with what you're doing? Because your name's on it. Our name's after our title for this one. So you have to go, what am I bringing to the table? And sometimes you need some input from outside of yourself. But we talk about finding that brand identity, that brand message. Who am I? What am I doing? Why am I better? Why should people listen to me? And asking those questions out loud sometimes actually
It's like
helps.
the Asher Strategies personality thing we took.
Ooh,
It's
yeah.
it tells you exactly this is what you're good at. This is what you should be focusing on, and that's hard to do to know yourself and your strengths.
So if
because-
anybody wants, so that's a good pragmatic advice for this episode is if you do want to know who you are in the workplace,
Mm-hmm.
as far as your personality type, we brought it up a bunch, but the Asher strategies, it's called the APQ.
Mhm.
It'll tell you, it'll give you a score according to, this one was the sales oriented one, I believe, but kind of sales, executive, and administrative. It'll tell you.
Yeah, I
what
don't
your
remember that part, but
It's
Well-
called APQ.
Mhm.
Is
It's
it
a-
like an online survey or?
It's-
or is-
advanced personality questionnaire.
oh,
And so like they'll ask you like vocabulary questions, and you're like, which one's the most right? And it'll give you 5 answers, and you're like, how does vocabulary?
Yeah.
Oh, all these can be right, but which one do I think is right? I think
Yeah,
is
it's not
how-
a lot of right and wrong answers. It's more of a trying to figure out how how would you answer it, and then they put it all into a big pile and they spit out a score.
So like we did it. Both Eric and I didn't want to believe
Uh-huh.
the results because we're kind of counterculture, knee jerk reaction to a lot of stuff. So if someone's like, "Hey, this is the new thing coming out," it's like,
Yeah.
that sucks.
Whatever.
So when we got the results, we were like, this thing doesn't know me at all, man. And then the further we got away from that test, it is like 100% accurate.
really? So
And
Does-
we don't know how. It's only 80 questions. It's $150. We didn't, and that was money we didn't want to pay. Didn't really have to put into this,
Mhm.
but we had someone who wanted to buy this podcast out and make it a network, buy the name, buy us, put us on salary, all that stuff. And he suggested it to us, and we're like, well, he hasn't been wrong from the stuff he told us throughout that whole process as far as kind of a mentorship. And so we're like, we should take it. So we took it, and it was like, this thing doesn't know me.
It wasn't that I was disappointed. I was just
You were disappointed.
I was disappointed that I didn't get a more like distinct thing because there's like a quadrant, and it was like,
Mhm.
oh, you might fall into this quadrant where you're more of this and that, and I was like dead center where it's like you're just nothing. You just like you do all you can be everything and nothing. It was very
It was an ego and empathy chart, right?
Yeah.
And so if you have a lot of ego and no empathy, you're like a Fortune 100 CEO, right? Those guys have don't give a shit about anybody.
wow. So it basically determines what career would suit you best or what position would
Right.
suit you
Yeah.
best.
So it'll be like
so basically I was like you'd
I
be a
can
good
bring it
teacher
up.
is what it said. I
Oh.
would be a good teacher.
and he
would
is a
be
good
the
teacher.
number one thing.
He has patience to be able to do it, and
I can attest to that though. I mean, you really, really
Thank you.
do. You really do.
Thank you.
Law, what about you? What did it say with you?
my number one job title was dynamic CEO because my empathy and ego scores were like in 80 out of 100 each,
Mhm.
and so you need kind of that you have to have enough ego to kind of go I feel like this is the right decision, but too much is bad. And then empathy, you need to be able to understand your audience or your target audience and the people you're working with and all that stuff to know when you're fucking up, or know when, without having that kind of know when the problems are going to arise without them actually explicitly being out there.
Well, I totally agree with it, with your assessment too, because you're the one that gave me the chance, pushed me into this, and you follow through.
Well, I'm not good on that at all times, but it's something that when you came in here, it was like, I empathize with your situation where you're coming in. You're like, I need to make a career move. I won't go into detail why or how you got here, but I was just like, well, look, you can do shit on your own.
Mm-hmm.
The thing we talk about too is like, you want to start a podcast, you want to do anything, you can kind of YouTube your way through a lot of it. You just have to.
Anything in life now.
The thing I have
It is crazy.
The
It's
thing I
right?
do have patience with is being able to sit down and like rip through YouTube videos and go, okay, I'm going to figure out how to do this.
Yeah.
I wish I had the patience for that. Honestly, you would think. I guess I'm such a researcher though, so I read everything. But it's so much
That's
easier to
fine.
watch it.
I'm like
though.
that too. I don't like to have to watch a video, and I like to be able to read at my own
Mhm.
speed and skip the stuff I don't want to, and that sort of thing. I'm with you there.
So one thing it told me, I was more ops oriented than I am marketing oriented. And the score, it was like the score for dynamic CEO was like 88. And then for ops, it was like 83. And then marketing was like 81. And so that makes sense to me if you really think about it. The further we got away from it, digital marketing is mostly ops. It's mostly scheduling. It's mostly automating. It's mostly planning. It really isn't the Mad Men days of like, you're not doing a lot of
Yeah,
creative.
laying on the couch, throwing a football in the air, see if you come up with ideas.
We can do the creative, but we could both do the math side as we were doing it. So it was like, to me, that was like, yeah, it's not Don Draper, going, this is Mojave Airlines or whatever.
Yeah. Mohawk.
Mohawk, yeah, that's it. And so I felt like I am more ops oriented, and that was kind of one of those things that taught me about myself that I didn't kind of realize.
So would you guys say it was worth the $150?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, in retrospect, I think it was.
I mean,
we're still talking about it.
I want to
Right.
kind
This
of
was like 3
right.
years ago too.
Yeah, it was November. I have it right here. It was November 30th, 2017. So yeah, I mean,
2 years ago.
it was
Yeah.
so like it'll tell you we're sales farmers, we're not sales hunters, or account farmers, not account hunters. That makes sense. We don't like doing hardcore sales. He's got a buddy that you meet him and you're like, that guy's a salesman, but not in a bad way. You're just like, I would buy whatever this
Right.
guy's putting down. But we couldn't do car sales. We'd hate ourselves for doing it.
Yeah.
But the relationships for that, we can do the long-term relationship building with people, which is kind of what we've been doing here. So we're farmers, not hunters.
How long have you guys had your podcast, the Sweat Equity
This
podcast?
one, 3 years. I don't know, something like
I
that.
think it goes back to 2015, late 2015, maybe.
We may have done it right when I
don't
started
remember.
this firm. I can't remember because we did it once a week, and then now we've got it twice a week. So the episode, I can't do the math, but
Yeah, I don't remember, but it's
and
about 3 years.
We were talking about booking guests is kind of the biggest pain in the ass. If we're
Mhm.
kind of bringing it all into like advice for a podcast, booking guests can be the hardest part.
Yeah, scheduling.
Calendly, the better we got it on Calendly, the better I felt peace of mind wise, where we can just send a link out
Yeah.
and people can fill it out. If they don't, we'll go without a guest. That for us I'm constantly worrying about when we were going to record and like kind of there's a floating date. So for us on a production side, we're like, why aren't we treating ourselves like the people that are renting our services now for podcasts and streaming shows and stuff? So why aren't we just, doing both episodes back to back, at this time? We'll have a backup time if that doesn't work out, like last week.
Yep.
And then we can just send the link out, because I want to just be able to, if I'm talking to someone, I don't want to go back and forth on text and going like,
Right.
let me talk to Eric and let me see if he's got, okay. And then I that shit drives me nuts. And that test actually told me that too.
Mhm.
I score low on like administrative and clerical, like fucking hate it.
I'm sure. I believe me.
I can do it. So that's the other thing. It's what your proclivity is. It doesn't mean you can't do things too. It just means this is what you'll tend to do.
and have the patience for
Yeah,
doing.
if you keep doing something that's not what you want to do, you'll be depressed.
And my
Or you'll hate it.
project management score was low, and that bummed me out. So I started working on that and started going at it. The stoicism philosophy, guys.
Well, as the journalist, I'll say, for those that are just tuning in right now, you guys have been nominated for Best Podcast on Creative Loafing. So I am asking you what pragmatic business questions on how to do a successful podcast.
Yeah,
You're on the right track.
I'm-
yeah,
You're doing everything you can at this point.
yeah, and you do a lot of social stuff too. That, I mean,
Yeah, you're already better on social networks with it than we are. I mean,
yeah, we can't. We have
It's
some
hard.
weird barrier where we can't do a selfie video without wanting to hate ourselves, and so, but that's probably a lot of reps too. You've been on camera so much that you know how to do it. We feel goofy. We feel like we should be doing a sketch, and then we're like, I don't want to write a sketch.
I know. If it's not good enough. It's just like, wait, before we run out of time, can I hear about the Polk County neighbor
Oh,
Yeah.
murder?
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's
See, that's good. He remembered to
Yes,
bring it
yes.
back.
Mm.
It was a loose
So-
end.
So I've been weighing in on some crazy crime cases, and a lot of them in Florida, but some also out of state. So this one is about a man named George Drapel and his victim,
Peggy Carr, and he befriends her, and he ends up poisoning her with soda.
It's like Coca-Cola.
Yeah.
RC
And
Jolt.
he
What do you do? Just just got her really fat from drinking too much sugar?
Yeah, pretty much.
Really?
No. The
Slow burn.
The diabetes murderer.
It's and he keeps on trying to appeal his case, trying to get out. It happened a while back, and to no avail. He's still behind bars. But it's one of those fascinating stories on you don't know who your neighbor is. And I think
Sure.
that's just, it's just one of those stories that you think the house next door, everything is fine. And you just never know
Oh, trust me.
what happens.
I'm living it. Once we
behind
get
closed
done here, I'll have
doors.
to tell you a story.
Oh,
Yeah.
boy.
If
But-
you
Yes.
if you want to drive yourself nuts, just go look up the Megan's Law map. Especially when you live in Florida, you're like, oh boy,
What?
you can see where all the sex offenders
Oh,
are.
yeah, you don't want to do that.
Yeah,
Well,
That's
you do,
so
but you
scary. I know that is very, very scary. But you can so
when you're the dad, you're like, I got to protect this house.
right.
So I started. You're on team
Right.
security.
don't.
Right.
The dog. My gay dog's not going to do anything.
Oh, yeah.
He's a little twink. He's not going to do anything.
Well, you can watch the episode on demand right now.
Okay.
It's on Headline News. And it's kind of interesting because, of course, people always say the craziest stories happen, in the state of Florida. And I can honestly say, as a journalist in the newsroom, we would always, something would happen in California, and we'd say, okay, what's the Florida connection? 'Cause
Yeah.
it seems like it always comes back to Florida.
Here's my case. All right. Florida, we take care of everybody's family member that is discarded from their family in Ohio or Michigan or New York. And we're taking care of them. If you were born and raised in Florida, I take umbrage with this because I look at a lot of those weird stories. It's
Mhm.
never a guy that's from here.
No, yeah.
Never. And never. We're such a transient state.
Right.
That
Tampa's a lily pad kind of city or metro area. Like we don't get people if you're born and raised here like we are, that's fucking rare.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we're like our generation's starting to actually grow up here and not be so transient. But I mean, look, if you read the news stories, it'll be like, all right, now I got to find out where this dude that hooked up with a dog, where this guy's from.
right. No,
Oh,
but
he's
it's
from
but
Indiana. Okay, that's okay. We're fine.
It's
He came
honestly
down
true,
because he has an
though.
opiate problem. Yeah,
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we take care of Florida. I say this on stage a lot as, look, you shouldn't make fun of Florida when I tell you I'm from there at the airport. You should be buying me a goddamn shot or at least that beer where you get the $2 shot. They try to upsell you. And you're like, yeah, I guess I'll do it.
Fine.
But I'm saying like, we're taking care of your grandparents, your uncle with an opiate problem, or the uncle that is a deadbeat dad. We got it. We're
Yeah.
taking care of him down here. We're the sanctuary state. You should be high-fiving every Floridian you meet because we have to deal with it day to day. And
I
then
know.
that crazy Florida stuff, I don't see that at all.
You don't think it's like partially because of the sunshine laws that open up all these police reports that you can see more of it?
Yes, I think that is part of it.
Okay.
Because we
I never
can't-
thought about that.
Yes, no, that's a really good question, Eric, because we do have more access
Yeah.
to a lot of these cases than they do in other states.
Right.
Once again, too, I think there's been numerous studies that have been done that prove that the heat can influence criminal behavior.
Oh, yeah.
So clearly we're in a warmer climate.
It'll bring more homeless. It'll bring more people that
does.
are, couch surfing and stuff. When
It
I was in
absolutely
LA,
does.
I worked with a charity that was like, they're trying to get 4,000 families with 4,000 homeless. Now it's got to be like 40,000 homeless people. It's insane now. But their deal was like, hey, LA is kind of screwed just because of where LA is. And I was like, oh, I never thought about that. The weather's so good
It's true.
that you can sleep in a tent.
It's
and Skid
absolutely
Row.
true. Like,
And so Florida's got a little bit of that going on too, where most of the year you're not worried.
because if you live in Chicago or Minneapolis or Boston, you're not going to. I mean,
Winters are hard.
winters are hard. I
Yeah.
mean, it's the truth. So So Florida attracts all sorts of people.
Right.
You
Yeah.
know? And
Second chance state.
second chance state.
It's a
Second chance state.
shady state, or what is it? Shady.
It's your line.
God damn it! I forgot it. It's a bumper sticker.
It's a sunny place for shady people.
That's it. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah.
That's a good one. I love Florida though, and I wouldn't give
Us
up
too.
Tampa for
I'm like,
home.
you want to shit on Tampa? Go ahead.
I
More room
love
for
it.
us. I
Right.
like it here.
I
Right. Just
love
don't
it.
take our baseball team to Montreal.
All
I
right.
know.
Yeah, half
If
the
they
time.
do, then bring it back.
Yeah. Yeah. You
Let
get
it-
you get the
you know?
middle. You get the middle part. We want the beginning and end of the season. That's all I want.
Yeah.
That's a whole other thing. I'm sure that I'd get in a lot of trouble for saying this.
Why?
But I want the baseball team in Tampa.
Yeah.
Too. I mean, in Tampa.
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know, and
That's
not
not-
St. Pete.
that's
I
not
know.
controversial.
No, when I heard they were thinking about Ybor City, I was like, it's perfect.
That'd be
Ybor would be awesome.
perfect.
We re-upped the lease because of it.
I
Like
know.
it's 3 blocks away.
Oh
Hell yeah.
my gosh, it'd be perfect.
Yeah, we wouldn't be able to afford that lease once they did build
That
it.
I want to be grandfathered in. That's what I'm saying.
I hope so.
Okay, sorry I didn't talk about the case as in depth, but I am going to post a blog on it on serenafazan.com.
All right, I'll look it up
See?
there.
Outro call to action. That's
All
a
right.
pro right there.
Oh,
Jesus Christ.
Sorry,
God
guys.
damn it.
All right, we got to go another hour until I can let everybody forget about
What
that.
about my sweat equity?
SweatEquityPod.com.
Sweat equity.
Creative
Sweat
loafing.
equity.
Vote for
My
all of
sweat
us.
equity.
And all the things.
Sweat